Okay. Polynomials. So a polynomial function is a function that contains only the operations of multiplication and addition with real number exponents and two variables. Okay, so here's a y variable, here's an x variable, and our exponents can only be whole numbers. Okay, first thing, this polynomial has a degree of, and the degree is the highest exponent. So what is the highest exponent you would see? A 3. The next one would have a degree of 4. The third example is a degree of 6. And the last example, hint, hint, I tried to trick you a little bit. What degree is it? 2. Okay, it's not necessarily the one it starts with. It's always the highest exponent you see. Okay, and a coefficient, do we remember what a coefficient would be? So something like this, the coefficient is the multiplying number. So on example 1, what is the coefficient? 1. Because you have 1 x cubes, right? The coefficient, the leading coefficient is 5. On this one, the coefficient, the leading one is -4. And on the last example, again, remember, wink, I'm trying to trick you a little bit. What's the coefficient, the leading coefficient? 3. Because 3x squareds is what you have, right? Okay. How do you graph these shapes? Okay, so a first degree, so if you have an x, a second degree is when you're talking about x squareds, right? X cubed, x fourth, x fifth. So that's what I'm meaning when I'm saying the degree. Okay, this is your grade 10. You graphed these. What happened to you in grade 10 when you graphed functions that were just an x in them? What was the shape that you were graphing in grade 10? A line. So a positive slope. And what happened when that coefficient in the front was a negative? So like y equals negative 2x. What would happen to the line? It would go down. Okay, grade 11, you graphed this. What was this x squared shape? Parabola. So if we had a positive parabola, and if we had a negative in front of our parabola shape, then it's that. Okay, I'm not going to write anything here, but let's talk about this. What happens on this? Do the ends go in the same direction as each other or opposite direction of each other? Opposite. So how about I just write, I'm just going to write it at the bottom to know that the ends go opposite of each other. What happens on a parabola? Do the ends go the same way as each other or opposite of each other? They would go the same direction. Okay, what do you think about this? What happens? What happens when we take a positive number and we cube it? What happens to it? Positive or negative result? Positive. What happens if we have a negative number and we cube it? Negative. So what do you think is going to happen to the shape? Positive numbers go up, negative numbers go down, but it's not a line anymore. It's going to make that kind of shape. So I'm going to refer to it probably as an N, like the letter N. Okay, can you visualize what that thing will look like when you reflect it? Flipping it upside down. Can you visualize what that's going to be? So the ends, your arrows are going to be opposite of each other. Okay, let's talk about a fourth degree. What happens when you take a positive number to a fourth degree? What would you get? Positive. A negative number to the fourth power. Positive. So both ends are positive, but I can't just draw a parabola. I can't draw a parabola, so I'm going to add an extra something into it. So you're probably going to hear me call that one a W shape. Okay, so what happens when you put a negative in front of that then? An upside down W, or we could probably classify that as an M. Okay, so when we talk about the ends, we better see that the arrows better be heading in the same direction. Okay, what's our prediction on the fifth? The arrows are going to be opposite of each other, and every time we have to add like something extra in. So this was a line. Here I added one extra swivel into it. Here I'm going to add an extra swivel into it. Okay. So there's our basic shapes. Now let's talk about our roots. Does everybody know like a root is the same thing as an X-intercept or a zero? A root, a zero, an X-intercept, those are all the same words in math. Okay, so here I'm going to have an X-intercept at where? Which X value? Which X value is the X-intercept of the graph? If this is a factor, the X-intercept is, so you're going to have an X-intercept at 2. Do you notice how they're all X-intercepts? At 2. What's different about this versus this versus this? What's happening? The exponent. Okay, so I feel like you might run into this word in your homework. Multiplicity of 1, multiplicity of 2, multiplicity of 3. So this root, I'm only worried about it once. Here I'm worried about it twice. Here I'm worried about it 3 times. Okay. So all three of these graphs have an x-intercept at 2. They're all going to do different things though. Okay, here, you ready for the rules? If there's a multiplicity of 1, your graph is going to just cross through. It's just going to be going through it, like normal. If there's a multiplicity of 2, your graph is going to bounce. So it's going to go up, hit it, and then go down. And on the last one, it's going to flatten through. So this is going to look a little bit different. That is a flattening through it. Can you see my flatten? Like I'm going up to it and I'm kind of flattening out as I go through it. Okay, now you can graph anything. Those are the two things. You need to know the shapes and the X-intercept rules, and we're ready to go. Okay, you ready? First of all, number 1, if I was to multiply this all out, it would end up being an x to the what? If all of those all got multiplied out, what's my final exponent? Cube? Okay, so right now in my head I have this as a general shape. Do you remember the general shape of a cube? That's what's in my head right now. It's going to make that shape. Okay, where are the x-intercepts going to be located? At +1. Where else? -2 and +3. Okay, let's calculate our y-intercept. So those are the x-intercepts. So where's the y-intercept? What does it mean? When x is 0. When x is 0, what number are you? Okay, ready? What's the value of this? What's 0 minus 1? -1. What's 0 plus 2? 0 minus 3. What does that all multiply to? +6. Okay, I need to make sure I have a number on my y-axis and at least a number on my x-axis. I can tell if this is 1, I can tell that that's 3, so I'm good. Okay, you have all of your intercepts. Can you graph your shape? Because we said what shape it's going to be. We said it's going to be an N. And your N has to go through all 4 of those points. Okay. you don't know where this is, you don't know where this is. In applied, I expect you to get the highest. I expect you, in calculus, we're actually going to do that as well. But in this course, all we do is the intercepts. Okay? So for you, those of you taking calculus, we're going to get like that point on the graph and like that point as well. But for now, this is all we're doing. Okay. Next one. What? Actually, I'll skip that one. I'll just do a few today. Let's do the third one. If you were to multiply everything, you would end up with an x to the what in the end of that? Fourth. So my shape is going to be, that's kind of in my head. Okay, let's think about all of our x-intercepts. So the first x-intercept, that's a 1. This one is -2. And this one's at +3. Oh, look, same as the last example. Okay. Now, where's our y-intercept? Okay, so forget the x, it's 0. So what is, we got a -1 squared. Don't forget, we're going to have to square that, right? Times a 2 times a -3. So if x was 0, that's what was happening to my math, right? Okay, be careful with the negative squared there. Think about your positive or negative.
The last one should also be -3. Oh yeah, the number.
That was good.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 6. What kind of 6 is it? A positive or a negative? Negative. Okay. Do we have something funny going on with this? Do you remember what happened there? What was the rule at the x-intercept? Do we remember the rules? We could cross through it, we could bounce it, or we could flatten it. What happens on this one? We have to bounce. So we're going to be bouncing off of this one. So remember your W, so we have to start like a W, but when we get to 1, we're going to have to bounce. Okay, so when it's a doubled root, we have to bounce off of it. If you've crossed somewhere else, like obviously something went wrong on your graph. Okay. I'm going to do this one. Let's do this one here. Okay. X to the what on this one? How many x's would I have at the end of this one? How many multiples? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess what? There's a negative in front. So what's the general shape of this? This is how my result is going to somehow be, right? The general idea of it. Okay. X-intercepts are happening at -1, +2, and +3. Okay, there's my scale. Where's the y-intercept? So guess what? We have to make sure we're including our coefficient in our math right now. Okay, so -2 times, and then this is what I'm doing, 0 plus 1, so 1. 0 minus 2 squared, 0 minus 3. Okay, see what you can get as a number? Make sure you know if you're positive or negative there as well, right? Okay, what do you think? Anybody feel really confident in the result? Is the number a 24? And what did you end up with, a positive or a negative? What do you think? Positive? Okay, so, all right. I'm just going to be going like that. I'm not going to write 24 tick marks. Okay, we know that our shape, I'm going to do that already, because I know my arrows are going like that. Okay, ask yourself what you're doing. Are you crossing? Are you bouncing? What do we do? Is there any that we bounce off of? We need to bounce off of that one. Okay. So we're going to cross through, go through our y-intercept, bounce up, cross through. Okay, I'll do this one then.
Like, does it not matter? Like, on the little second bump, how high you go?
No. Some of you might have gone way up. Some of you might have barely gone up. That you don't know how to do yet. Okay? So making sure you have the general shape and all the intercepts is what we're worried about. Okay? Okay, this is the last graphing one I'm going to do here. So what's the x to the what when you're all said and done all this? 4. So I know my arrow situation is going to be both up. Okay, my x-intercepts are at 2 and at -2. And I gave myself some kind of scale. Okay, that y-intercept is going to be -2 times +2 cubed. So what is that all going to turn into? What do we think? Positive or negative? Negative result. Did you get 16? Okay, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to tell myself, I already know my end behavior, so those need to both be going up. Okay, Now your rules. Do you cross through? Do you bounce? Do you flatten? What do you want to do? At -2, we need to flatten. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go down, flatten, through. That's my flatten. And I got to get through this point. I don't know how you're getting through. It doesn't matter. So yours might have looked different down here. That's fine. It's like counts as like one of the dips on the W. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you know as some general ideas about this graph right now? What do you know about the degree of that graph? What would you want to put there as an exponent? 4. Why would you put 4? Because you have an x-intercept. 1, 2, and this counts as a double. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? What do you know about this value? Just one general thing you know about it. Basically, all I'm asking you is this going to be positive or negative? It's going to be some kind of negative number, right? Okay. I don't know what that number is. If my intercept is -2, what's the factor? X plus 2. If this x-intercept is at 1, then the factor was x minus 1. And if this intercept was at 3, then the factor is x minus 3. But we got to make it bounce, so then that's squared. Okay, now I'm going to figure out what A is. Okay. So I need to get a y-intercept of 36. So here's what I'm thinking. If x was 0, I got to make 36. How am I going to make that? So ready? I need y to end up being 36. There's some kind of number here. I do know that it's negative. If x was 0, this would be 2, -1, and -3 squared. Okay, so what would that all come out to be? Two times -1 times +9. This all makes -18. Therefore, A must be a -2. We did know it was negative, right? We said that at the start. That's got to be a negative number. So, what's your equation? Y equals -2 times all of those factors.